Hello, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to another Nolte Lightning Talk. Today, we're going to be talking about building stronger teams. And specifically, some of the things I've learned from leading teams and also from being a parent. So, who am I? So, I'm Adam Fenton. I'm the co-founder and COO of Nolte. I have around 20 years experience in software teams, both as a team member and a leader. I'm also a husband to my wonderful wife, Ellie, and also a father to these two little guys, Dom and Ethan. So I thought this quote was very relevant because when it comes to building stronger teams, the manager or our leaders have a very big role to play. So your job as a manager is to get better outcomes from a group of people working together. That's from Julie Zhou, who's VP of Product Design at Facebook. So I'm going to step through a few tips that I think are very important, and at the end we can have a discussion around it. So when it comes to building a strong team, the foundation is trust. And my advice and the thing that I think really works is to start from a place of trust. So assume your team want to work and want to do or will do good work. I think if you approach it from that perspective, you'll build trust in them. So they'll trust you more, and they'll see that you trust them. Stay hands off. Don't micromanage your team, and let the small things go. You know, sometimes we like come from a background as producers. I do, and so do I feel most managers. And we know, like, this is how I would do a task or how I would solve a problem. And it's not always ideal to micromanage your team. In fact, it's generally never to micromanage your team and tell them how to do it. And, you know, if they do things in a different way, well, you know, you can ask questions, you can perhaps coach, but let those small things go sometimes. You know, it's not important all the time. You know, sometimes it helps for people to do things and learn by doing them in a certain way, like what works and what doesn't. And, you know, also don't assume that you know best all the time. I mean, your team are there because they are good at their jobs. They know what they're doing. So trust them and let them do it. Building on that, it's really important to develop your relationship with your team members. You know, they should trust you too. So take the time to understand them as people, not just producers. And go to bat for your team. So remember, it's your job to support them. So really, as a leader, our job is, like Julie said, to get better outcomes for our team. And how do we do that? Is by supporting our team in doing their jobs to the best of their abilities. And how do we relate this? Well, I relate this to my parenting. So I find the more I trust my kids to do things on their own, the more independent they become, and the better they can get by without me nagging them all the time. So here you can see Dom holding his little brother just after he was born. So as I just mentioned, treating people as individuals is really important. So see your team members as individuals. Don't use a cookie cutter management process. You know, if you have a process in place in your company or maybe just in your team where you're following a certain rhythm on one-to-ones or you know, or other or feedback or things like that, try to adapt it to the people you're working with. You know, some people may need more feedback or others may need less, for example. Nurture them on their own terms. So recognize their unique behaviors. So really, you know, understand the people in your team, you know, what makes them tick and what inspires them. Do you know what motivates each member of your team? I think that's really important. You know, some people are motivated by money, sure. Some people by by more responsibility, some by certain types of projects. There's a whole wide range. So find out what motivates your team and think about how you can give it to them, because at the end of the day, a successful relationship with your team member will involve give and take on both sides. So, the team member really should feel that they're benefiting from working with you as well as you benefiting from their work. And the last one is care about them and really care about them. So you can't fake this, I don't think. So really, take the time to think about them as people and think about challenges or issues they may have in their lives outside of work as well, and show that you care. So I couldn't help adding a Monty Python reference here when I was thinking about this. So. And as a parent, so the same, each of my kids is developing their own unique personality, and the way I interact with each of them is different according to their individual needs. Culture. So it's our job as leaders to build a high-performance culture for our teams. This starts by defining a shared purpose. So some people might call this a story, but what is it that you as a team want to achieve? Is everyone bought into that? I'll say this again because I think it's so important and is an important part of culture. Don't micromanage, ask, don't tell. Your job is not to order people, it's to coach them. And this is another thing which is really important, I think, is to create leaders. So it's our job as leaders to create other leaders. In fact, that is one of the gold star recommendations of a leader is that they create new leaders. So by leader, I mean other people in your team who can influence change. So this is again really important, and it, as well as helping you scale, it will help you be less stressed and less having to be involved in everything as a leader. Embrace failure. So this is something which is said a lot and is so important. If people in your team have a fear of failure because they fear that you're going to tell them off or they're going to be otherwise punished for failure, they're going to be very restricted on what they do. They're not going to want to step up and and to a challenge or take something on their own without running it by you first, because if they fail, they won't like the consequences. So really, let's treat failure as a learning experience, not as something to be punished. And the last one is to hold each other accountable. So this really requires that shared purpose. So if we're all working towards the same purpose, then we can hold each other accountable because we all are working towards achieving the same thing. We can look each other in the eye and we know we'll do what we say. So as a parent, again, my job is to create an environment in which my children will thrive and where they're not afraid of failure and are set up to succeed in life. So really, to inspire a growth mindset in my kids. Pick the team. So super important. And in fact, I think this will get you a long way towards being successful, is having the right people on your team. So the right people depends on your team, on your culture, on your goals and your skills you acquire, of course. But you need to define what that means to you and then make sure that you are thinking about that as you hire and as you develop your team. Hiring is always a priority. So this is something which I've learned is that you always need to think about hiring. So whether that's networking, whether that's actively looking for new people, or when you have a job open, but you always need to keep that moving. And especially when it comes to more senior hires, networking and recommendations tends to work a lot better than going cold calling or finding people or hoping that people apply for a job that you put out there. Sometimes it's necessary to make difficult decisions, and sometimes that is required. But remember, it's for the greater good, normally for both sides. when that happens. And the last one I think is very important, is also to spread the responsibility for hiring through your team. So by that I mean, in part, when you have a job position open and you're interviewing, involve the whole team. You know, do have your team agree on what we're looking for in the candidate, have them involved in the interview process and making decisions about who goes through and who doesn't. At the end of the day, they're the ones who are going to be working with that person as much as you. They should have a say in it. The other side of that is on the kind of always be hiring mentality. So, you know, you'll encourage your team to network too, to bring in references. We have a referral scheme. I know a lot of companies do, because at the end of the day, a lot of your strongest hires and easiest hires come from referrals. So really, you know, encourage that throughout your culture and your team. This one doesn't link into parenting at all. You can't, as Harper Lee said, you can choose your family, but you sure can't choose your friends. Or you can choose your team in our case. So that's it. So really super quick lightning talk, a few top tips there. You know, and just to sum up, it's our job as leaders to foster an environment in which our people and our teams thrive, and by extension, our company. It's everyone's job to be open, to contribute, to work with their team to make it the greatest team possible. Any questions, comments, feel free to speak up or enter them into the chat. No? Okay, well, if there's no questions, then we'll leave it there. Anyone who's watching this later, feel free to add something, add a comment with your questions, and we'll get back to it. If there's no questions, then we'll leave it there. Anyone who... and I hope you enjoyed this. Please join us next week for our next lightning talk. Thank you and goodbye.